Welcome back, everybody, to The Deep Dive. Social media, it's basically running the world at this point, right?
Pretty much.
Well, for this deep dive, we're going to be looking at where things stand as of right now,
2025.
2025. We've got some global stats and a deep dive into Instagram Reels. But I think we're going to see that social media is impacting us like in a lot of different ways, like politically, financially, and even like personally.
Absolutely.
So let's get right to it. First off, how much time are people spending on social media?
Well, it's only growing. I mean, billions of people are using social media globally.
Yeah.
And I think what's really interesting is that it's not just a way to connect with people you know anymore. It's actually a force in politics.
Oh, totally.
And economics.
It is. Okay, so how about this?
Yeah.
Did you know that over half of Gen Z and millennials in the U.S. are getting their election news through social media?
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
That's a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is through short videos.
Yeah, and that just shows how much the role of social media in politics has really evolved. Like, you can see how these platforms are shaping the way we see candidates. And campaigns and elections are really playing out online.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. And, you can't talk about social media without talking about the money. I mean, global social media ad spending is going to reach, get this, $255.8 billion.
By 2028.
By 2028.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Huge. And it's only going to keep growing. So, I mean, that's shaping consumer behavior, markets.
Oh, yeah.
Globally.
Entire economies.
Exactly. Okay, so we know social media is this massive force. But what about the actual platforms themselves? Some of the big names are still on top, but some are facing some pretty big challenges. YouTube, for instance, they're still crushing it. They've got like 94% brand awareness just in the U.S.
It's incredible. They've been around forever, and they just keep adapting. They're still one of the best. And, Baby Shark Dance is still the most watched YouTube video ever. 13.93 billion views.
Oh, my God. I can't even imagine.
Crazy.
That is nuts. But then you've got X, Twitter, and they're having a rough time.
Yeah. Their ad revenue is projected to drop from $4.73 billion to just $2.7 billion by 2027.
That's a huge drop. I mean, it makes you realize just how fickle the social media world is. Like, you have to evolve and innovate or you get left behind.
Totally.
But then there's Instagram. They're still growing, estimated to hit 1.44 billion users by 2025. And a lot of that has to do with how they've been embracing trends like short-form video.
Yeah, their Reels feature has been huge for them.
Yeah, and that brings us to the big battle.
Woo!
Instagram Reels versus TikTok. I mean, things are getting intense.
They are. So Instagram users spend half their time on the app watching Reels.
50%.
Half.
Wow.
Which I think just shows how dominant short-form video has become. It's so easy to watch, it's quick, it's engaging.
Yeah, it's perfect for our shrinking attention spans.
Totally. And more than half of Instagram users interact with Reels every single week, so there's a ton of engagement.
There is. But even with all that, TikTok is still king in the U.S. I mean, they have 40% of the market for short-form video.
Versus Instagram's 18%.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But Instagram Reels actually have a much higher reach rate than other Instagram post types. We're talking 30.81%.
Yeah.
That's more than double the other types.
And that's a big deal for brands and influencers because it means that their content has the potential to be seen by way more people.
Yeah. So TikTok may be the king right now, but Instagram Reels are definitely a force to be reckoned with, especially because influencer marketers are flocking to them. Like 62.2% of them will be using Reels in their campaigns by 2025.
Wow.
So let's step back for a second and think about the bigger picture of content creation.
Yeah.
With short-form video blowing up, we're seeing a definite shift towards like more visual and like quick hit content.
Absolutely.
Reels now make up almost 40% of all Instagram feed posts.
38.5%.
And between Instagram and Facebook Reels, they're being played like over 140 billion times a day.
Every single day. It's mind-blowing. It's nuts. And TikTok. Well, globally, users spend an average of 95 minutes a day on that platform.
Which is more than any other social network.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, they've figured out how to just keep people hooked. Okay, so let's switch gears a bit and talk about India. They're having a digital surge like no other.
Yeah, their digital economy is exploding and it's completely changing the country's economics.
So in 2022-23, India's digital economy was 11.74% of their total national income. And it's projected to hit 13.42% by 2024-25. I mean, those are huge numbers.
They are.
And it just highlights how much power the digital sector is gaining. Plus, Get this. India leads the world in digital transactions.
And they're a huge exporter of ICT services.
Right. And their influence goes beyond economics. They're a global leader in tech, contributing 23% to global GitHub AI projects.
That's the highest in the world.
It is. So yeah, India's digital transformation is pretty amazing to watch, but it's also changing the way people work. We're seeing this rise of platform gig work and content creation, which is both exciting and kind of, well, scary.
Yeah. It's creating opportunities, but also a lot of challenges.
Definitely. But we'll dive into all of that in just a sec. Okay, so we were talking about the digital economy just exploding, especially in India. But what does this mean for like the average person, the worker? Yeah, it's a good question. We're actually seeing this kind of bimodal structure popping up in the workforce.
Bimodal?
Bimodal, yeah. So you've got this like concentration of really high-skilled tech workers, like software developers, data scientists, AI people.
Yeah, the people who are driving all the innovation.
Exactly, like the rock stars, basically.
Yeah.
But then at the other end, there's this huge, and I mean huge, growing pool of gig workers. You know, the delivery drivers, online freelancers, content creators, all those folks.
So it's like the digital elite.
Uh-huh.
And then everyone else kind of piecing together an income on different platforms.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. And it raises some questions, right? Like about income inequality, job security.
Totally.
How do you get ahead in this fragmented gig economy?
Right, right. Okay, well, let's lighten things up a bit. Let's talk about short-form video. I mean, it's everywhere right now.
It's inescapable.
What is it about these bite-sized videos? Why are we so obsessed?
I think it's a few things, honestly. Our attention spans are definitely shrinking.
Yeah, for sure.
We're just bombarded with information all the time, so we're kind of used to just quick hits of content now. Plus, short form video is, I mean, it's fun, it's engaging, it's visual. There's usually music. People get really creative with it.
Yeah, and the algorithms are really good at feeding us what we want.
Oh, yeah, those algorithms, they keep us scrolling forever.
Like they know us better than we know ourselves. Okay, so let's talk about the major players in this short-form video game. We talked about TikTok, Instagram Reels, but what about YouTube Shorts? Are they a real contender?
They're definitely trying. They've got a huge global audience already, and they know video, so it makes sense that they would get into the short-form game. Plus, they've already got this massive creator base, and they're good at monetization. So they have a lot going for them, but they're still behind TikTok, especially when it comes to how much users love it and how it's shaping culture.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? You've got these giants like YouTube and Instagram trying to catch up with this relative newcomer, TikTok, who is just dominating.
Yeah, it really shows how quickly things can change online. Like one day you're the top dog, and the next you're scrambling to keep up.
Yeah, you got to adapt or die. So speaking of struggling to keep up, let's go back to X, formerly known as Twitter. What's going on there? What do you think the future holds for them?
They've been having a rough time, honestly.
Yeah.
They lost a lot of ad revenue, and their users are leaving. They've had a lot of controversies, management issues. It just seems really unstable over there.
It's kind of sad. I mean, they used to be such a powerful platform for news and having discussions. But now it's like they've lost their way.
They need to do something drastic to get people excited again. Offer something new, something valuable, or they're just going to fade away.
Yeah, it's tough out there. Okay, so we've talked about platforms and trends. But what does this all mean for us, the users? How do we handle this crazy digital world?
I think being mindful is key. Like, be deliberate about what you're doing online.
What do you mean?
Well, first, you got to be aware of those algorithms. Know how they work and how they're feeding you information. Basically, be more digitally literate. Think critically about the information you're seeing. Look for different perspectives.
So it's like being in control of what we consume instead of just letting it wash over us.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's about being mindful of how much time you're spending online. It's so easy to just get sucked in.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
But you got to set some boundaries. You don't want to miss out on real life because you're too busy scrolling.
It's about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about those notifications? How do we deal with those?
Turn them off. I mean, seriously, how many of those notifications are actually important? You don't need to know every time someone likes your photo or comments on something.
Okay, so reclaim our attention.
Yes. Decide when and how you engage online. Don't let it control you.
Got it. And be mindful of the content you're looking at.
Yes. If seeing certain accounts or platforms is making you feel stressed or anxious or just bad about yourself, unfollow them.
Like a digital decluttering.
Exactly. Surround yourself with stuff that makes you feel good, that teaches you something, that inspires you.
Okay, so set boundaries. Curate our content. Find ways to cope. Any other tips for surviving in this digital age?
Just remember, you're not alone. Everyone is struggling with this stuff to some degree, so don't be afraid to ask for help if you're feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, there are therapists, support groups, online resources, tons of stuff.
And sometimes just talking to a friend or family member can make all the difference.
Yeah, yeah. So it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have a hard time dealing with all of this. And it's super important to get help if you need it.
Couldn't agree more. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health. Take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered a lot here. The ups and downs of social media, the digital workforce, short-form video, being mindful of our digital lives. But there's one more big thing we need to talk about. The impact all of this is having on our mental health and well-being.
Definitely a big one.
We'll dive into that in our final segment, but first. Okay, so we've covered a lot of the ups and downs of this digital world, but let's be real. All this connection, all this information, and this pressure to always be on, it's got to be impacting our mental health, right?
Oh, absolutely it is. I mean, just look around. We're seeing more anxiety, depression, loneliness, especially with younger people who've grown up with all of this.
Yeah, it's like we're constantly comparing ourselves to these perfect lives we see on social media. It makes you feel like you're not good enough.
Yeah, and comparison really can steal your joy. And social media just throws it in your face all the time. Plus, there's this pressure to always be available, answer every notification immediately. It's like you can never really switch off.
Yeah, it's exhausting. So what do? Do we all need to, like, go live in a cave with no internet?
Well, that's one way to do it. But I think for most people, it's about finding that balance, setting boundaries, being mindful of how much you're online and making sure you're taking care of yourself.
Okay, so how do we actually DO that? Like, what are some practical things we can do?
Well, first, you got to figure out what's triggering you to go down those digital rabbit holes.
Okay.
Is it stress, boredom, loneliness? Once you know what your triggers are, you can start to find healthier ways to cope.
So instead of scrolling through Instagram when I'm stressed, I should, like, go for a walk or call a friend.
Exactly. Find things you enjoy doing offline, things that make you feel good, and those notifications, turn them off. Seriously, most of them can wait. You don't need to be constantly interrupted.
Yeah, it's about taking back control, right?
Exactly. And pay attention to what you're actually looking at online. If certain accounts or platforms are making you feel bad, unfollow them.
Like a digital cleanse.
Exactly. Fill your feed with stuff that inspires you, teaches you something, makes you happy.
So set boundaries, be picky about our content, find healthy ways to deal with stress, anything else.
I think the biggest thing is remembering that you're not alone in this. Everyone struggles with this stuff. So don't be afraid to reach out for help if you need it.
Yeah, there are lots of resources. Therapists, support groups, even just talking to someone you trust.
Yeah, sometimes that's all it takes.
So it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel overwhelmed by it all, and reach out if you need help.
Absolutely. Take care of your mental health. It's so important.
It is. Well, we have covered a lot in this deep dive. The ups and downs of social media, the digital economy, how it's impacting jobs, all the craziness of short-form video, and how to stay sane in this digital world.
It's been quite a ride.
It has. And as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with a few things to think about. First, the digital world is constantly evolving. What's popular today might be gone tomorrow. You got to stay informed, be flexible, and always keep learning.
It's a journey.
It is. Second, remember the digital world is a tool. It can be good or bad. We get to decide how we use it.
We have the power to shape it, to make it something positive.
And finally, your mental health matters. Don't let the digital world take over your life. Set those boundaries, take care of yourself, and ask for help when you need it.
It's all about balance, building that resilience and remembering to connect with the real world even while we're navigating this digital one.
Well said. And on that note, it's time to wrap up this deep dive. But before we go, make sure to check out the show notes for links to all the sources we talk about. And don't forget to join the conversation on our social media channels. We'd love to hear what you think. Until next time, happy deep diving, everyone.